Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 130. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Friday show. Dave, we just mentioned this right before we started our show here in our heavy pre-production meeting. We have almost made it to the end of the offseason, and training camp is right around the corner.
Woohoo, boy, I must have slept through the Ben is fat portion of the offseason. Either that or it went by very quick because it seemed like before we knew it, Ben is in the best shape of his life season got here. And usually when Ben is in the best shape of his life gets here, it usually means training camp's getting underway, right?
Yeah. It's our North Star. Just look for the Ben in the best shape of his life comments, and you will get to the start of the season.
Absolutely. We're mighty thankful for the way the NFL kind of news, the calendar and news cycle, and I don't know. It just seems like. I don't think we've struggled as much, trying to find some stuff to write about. Now a lot of stuff isn't all that, great, all these lists and stuff like that and hot takes and all like that. I know you had a terrible take the other day about, oh boy, you can't wait for training camp to get here. But I got to admit, I listened to the Adam Shines and the Colin Cowherds.
Why do you do that? I can't do it.
And I said this in my terrible take, that it's my job. It says that we have to do that in the wannabe media blogger handbook, and B, I'm constantly trying to pick out fallacies in that kind of stuff to kind of write about and have fun with on top of it. But long story short, it is good that training camp is almost upon us, and I don't know, the dull, slow month has seemed to, maybe it's because I'm getting older, went by a little bit quicker, I think.
I ripped that page out of the pretend media handbook about listening to that nonsense, because it's just everyone just trying to one-up each other with the next hot take. They just, it's never enough.
Well, look, we ought to have when I transitioned into the professional senior bloggers tour.
Who's on the professional?
I don't know. But I might
Tony Romo somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. Do some of those charity pro amateur blogging events and all like that. But whenever I do get put out to pasture and all, maybe I'll have a kind of a senior career in hot takes, because I think anybody can do it. And if anybody can do it, I think that includes me. And I still don't think I could rip one off like Devin Bush needs to be suspended.
That was a scorcher of a take.
I mean, look, we at least me, I think something's going on with Devin Bush in his life right now. I can't totally explain the erratic behavior there, but I don't think he's done anything whatsoever to warrant, a scorching take like Devin Bush needs to be suspended. I mean, I know, we assumed Cam Hayward was getting on him playfully, the other day on Twitter, and all like that. But, I don't think Devin Bush needs to be suspended.
Yeah, so those are the kind of takes we've been getting this month, but that'll wrap up soon as training camp starts. We don't know the official report date yet, but we know the first practice is open practice to the public is July 20th. Probably going to have a couple more practices before the 28th. I do want to tease something that we mentioned on Twitter last night, and you can probably see in the headline of this episode. We have a very special guest a little bit later in the Terrible Podcast that is two-time Super Bowl winning cornerback Ike Taylor. Dave and I talk with Ike for about a half hour, talking about things like Devin Bush's tweets, but also talking about his thoughts on Ben and tipping plays, and of course just talking about Taylor's career and his relationship with Dan Rooney and becoming a Steeler and some of his best memories. And so some really cool stories there. And had a really good time talking with Ike Taylor.
Boy, what a character he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
and this is something that I tweeted out, during the later stages of his career. Then obviously he went on to be on NFL Network and all. Like I always thought that Ike was good enough to be, some sort of analyst or podcaster, those kind of things, sort of along the same lines with Ramon Foster. You always thought Ramon Foster was good in front of the camera. Arthur Moats is another one of those guys that does a real good job there. But I think people will or hope people, when they listen to the interview, man, Ike was just really relaxed, man. It's almost like you calling up and catching up, old times with him and all like that, like you hadn't just talked to him in like 6 or 7 years there. And really, that's the first time I think I've talked to Ike Taylor before, and I think it is for you as well too there. But the interview really went smooth, and we hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, the thing with Ike is that he's just honest. He's honest.
Right.
He's authentic. He's going to give you the answer. He's going to tell you the story, give you his true opinion. He doesn't have to sugarcoat really anything. And so that's it feels like such an easy baseline requirement for a media job, but so many people don't do that. But Ike's one of those guys that does, and that makes it a really easy and fun conversation.
Yeah, I guess my main point is it didn't look like he was troubled by having to do an interview with a couple of wannabe blogger, content creator, podcasters, or however that goes.
Yeah, so really excited you guys can hear from Ike Taylor in just a little bit, though. Dave, we want to start off with some news of the other day. Some news came out, according to report, Las Vegas local stations reporting Dwayne Haskins was treated for facial injuries, including potentially a knocked out tooth, a cut lip. He disputes some of that on Instagram following some sort of domestic situation with his wife. Obviously a very serious situation here. I don't want to make light of it. Don't want to make jokes about it. Some people on Twitter obviously have, and Haskins has done nothing wrong. At least we don't have any information that he's done anything wrong here. He's a victim here, and so I'm not going to try to blame him or shame him or anything like that. But obviously not a headline that you want to read, and obviously just a situation that we have to talk about.
Yeah, well, and look, from what's out there right now, it doesn't sound like, it does sound like, he was the victim here and that he controlled himself, in a proper manner there. I don't think, look, this incident supposedly happened, I think, on July the 3rd. Right. And it's funny how some things get out quick and some things it takes, what are we now? 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, I guess, away from 2.5 weeks away from the original incident happened. Popped out kind of out of nowhere there. The thing is it's just, what did we say right when Haskins was signed by the Steelers? What is the first primary goal for bar for Dwayne Haskins to clear?
Yeah, it was to make it to training camp. And to be fair, there's no indication this is going to affect his status of doing that.
Right. There's been no indication. Now, the Steelers have not commented on this yet, but my point...
They did comment and said they're not offering a comment.
Right. They're aware of this situation, but have no further comment. Now, this incident happened enough time ago that you would think that the Steelers have gathered enough information on their side of things that if there was going to be some sort of roster move with him, that it might have happened by now there. So it does indeed look like he'll still make it to training camp here. Just overall, it's just a bad optics thing on a guy that's got, let's face it, one big toe maybe out of the league, barely, or toenail out of the league. Guy that's looking for, a second chance there. You don't know how many, guys like him, or how many chances guys like him are going to get. One of the kind of the knocks on him, when he was released from Washington was the fact, the immaturity questions there, and to get yourself in situations like this where it becomes headlines. Look, I know it's not, none of this seems to be technically his fault here, but you get in certain situations there or around people that can cause situations. Well, the headlines usually pop up, and when those headlines pop up, whether or not you're to blame or not, it's just not a good look. It all goes back to the whole optics thing here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I hope for the couple's sake they can get things cleared up here, and that maybe things aren't as didn't go down maybe specifically the way things went down there. I know he's disputed whether or not he lost a tooth or not. I don't see how you can how a police report can maybe be wrong or misinterpreted like that, but it does happen there. I'm not finger pointing at him at all. I'm rooting for the kid. What I've said all along is this is a lottery ticket here with a former first round draft pick, and very rarely do these kind of things pay off. And boy, what a hoot it would be for the Steelers if this was to develop into him being, let's say, maybe not even a franchise quarterback, but kind of a bridge quarterback that can make you compete, for a couple more years until maybe you do find your next franchise quarterback and all like that. So I think, just to sum up my thoughts on it, it's just unfortunate situation, at least what's out there right now, and that you just hate to see the optics of it because of second chance and immaturity questions and things related to those, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I don't like getting into the weeds of these stories too much, but I know that Haskins, before this report came out, there was a photo of him. It looked like an engagement. And now there's articles or police reports referring to the woman as his wife. Apparently, they had gotten married in March of this year and were renewing their vows. That was the photo. We don't know exactly what the truth is here. I guess it doesn't matter a whole lot, but that is maybe one point of clarification. But yeah, for now, no indication it's going to jeopardize Haskins' status going to training camp, being a part of this roster. And I'm just excited to watch him come training camp and see what this guy can do.
Yeah, I mean, look, and there will probably be other details of this that eventually kind of come out at some point. But as we sit right now, it doesn't look like he's in jeopardy of not making it to training camp. So the good thing is back when he gets in training camp, he'll be tied to the area, for
Right.
for now until however long before their first break when they can get back out of town again, I guess. So
Yeah. All right, Dave, the last couple of days we've heard from several soon-to-be Hall of Famers enshrined in the Canton, Ohio, with Bill Cowher and Troy Polamalu and Alan Faneca. Those guys have been making the media rounds with the Hall of Fame inductions coming up here just in a couple of weeks. So I wanted to recap some of what those guys said. Troy especially, because, A, we just don't hear from Troy a whole lot. He's a pretty reserved guy, and that's kind of always been his mentality and style, and just had some really good interviews with some of the local media. And so what kind of stuck out to you in terms of what he has said in some recent conversations?
Boy, you throughout his career, he didn't have that many, media sessions overall, I don't think, and none, obviously, the ones that he had weren't lengthy like the one, I think the one the other day was 30 minutes long, right thereabouts there and all like that. It's almost like, I don't know, I kind of got the feeling like, man, this is like Gandhi talking to you. You know what I'm saying? Because he's such an even keel, speaks softly but delivers such a big message there. You can just tell that Troy is so thankful about the whole process and wants to make sure that he doesn't miss thanking anybody, the person that gave him a drink of water or provided a place for him to sleep, those kind of things there. He's so cognizant of, man, I just don't want to forget to thank anybody. And the other takeaway too is, and it's not new, but it's Troy is very comfortable with I think his career being over, and B, that football does not define who he is. He was always kind of thinking about, early on, does he want to football to be, what he does, at least initially. But I think at the same time, it didn't take him long to understand that football for him, it was not going to be forever, and then that there was going to be something, post football as well too. So, very, even keeled, mild mannered, kind of guy. And once again, I think that beard I think that gray coming in on his beard, no, I think it looks great. I mean, I really do. To me, once again, I think it's almost like Gandhi-ish. That it's almost like a spiritual leader of sorts. Now, I mean, a little bit, hyperbole there on my part, I'm sure, but just a really calming effect. And I thought just a really good interview overall on his part. And man, I can't wait for, I think his speech has got to be something like 8 minutes long or something like that. It should be very impactful. I think in during his 8 minutes that he gets there. So really looking forward to that.
Well, he said in that interview he was dreading giving the speech. He's like, Can we have another delay? Can we push it back another year? Because apparently he's like really nervous and just doesn't really know what to say. But I'm sure it'll be great whatever he lands on. What I was just really warmed to and heartened to hear about is that it seems like, because we had heard rumors, and obviously he hasn't had maybe the best relationship with the Steelers. His post NFL career really hasn't been around the team too much, but he says that his relationship with Pittsburgh's great. Still talks with the team, talks with teammates, and hopes to make it out to a couple games at Heinz Field this season. So it sounds like if there was any sort of iciness, any sort of issues with him and the team right after his playing days ended, those things have been mended, and that hopefully things are on good terms right now, which is just great to see.
Yeah, I think so as well too. And look, I mean, can we go ahead and pencil him in for that early December game against the Ravens at Heinz Field? But not that you need much to have Heinz Field rocking, but especially if it's a game against the Ravens there. But boy, can you imagine that place with Troy and a couple of those other, Faneca and Cowher and several of those guys in attendance there. That will be a tough place for the Ravens to come play a ball game in early December there. And he said a couple of games, so one would imagine I don't know when they're doing the Hall of Honor kind of stuff and that kind of stuff there, but I would hope a couple winds up being at least more than two, but we'll see. It'll definitely be great to have him back in Heinz Field again.
What was also interesting, Troy talked about his rookie season, because you remember Troy's career as always being successful and great, and one of the game's most feared players on defense. He talked about how he said, quote, humbling and humiliating his rookie season was, and how he kind of had to take a step back and really evaluate himself and say, I got to go all in here and really try to make this thing work, or it's not going to work. And so I kind of don't remember Troy's rookie season too much. I just remember him always being good. I mean, what do you remember from that first year?
Just that I don't remember his rookie season really being bad as much as I remember it being just uneventful, Okay. And obviously didn't play too terribly much his rookie season there, and good thing Twitter wasn't invented back then, because he's a bust. I think there were a couple maybe articles written at the time I could probably research and find. Boy, this kid's a bust, but like anything, it took him a while to learn the defense and get on the field and get that trust of Dick LeBeau and those kind of things. But I mean, right from his second season on, the light clicked on with him, and man, it probably does seem to someone like you that Troy was always good, and technically he always was. It's just really his rookie season was really just kind of more nondescript than anything from what I remember.
Yeah, he said, quote, "My rookie season was not enjoyable, nor was it very successful." He says he had a post-rookie season, quote, "I had kind of had a real conversation with myself. I was like, listen, man, you're either going to go all in on this or all out, because if you're not all in on this, there might not be a career." Of course, he did go all in. He says he changed his diet and things like that. And by the next season, he kind of started to come into form and, begin that real Hall of Fame career. But, really good interview there from Troy.
And I think transitioning into he played for two great coaches too, right? And transitioning into Tomlin, saying Tomlin let him be who he is. Talked about he obviously Troy's really spiritual and church on Sunday and those kind of things. So I thought that was high praise for Mike Tomlin too, what he had to say about him, and how he dealt with him, which was obviously several years, a few years into his career at that point, and Troy was already, pretty much. I think about that time in 2007 was regarded as one of the top safeties in the league.
Yeah, he played for a bunch of Hall of Famers. Bill Cowher, Hall of Famer. Dick LeBeau, Hall of Famer. All for but 1 year of his career. Tim Lewis was the DC his first year, but LeBeau after that, and then Tomlin, who's a borderline Hall of Famer. We'll see where that ends up. So, not many guys can say that maybe both of their head coaches were going to be in the Hall of Fame, and their DC's was in the Hall of Fame as well. And so that's pretty special. Troy himself was obviously just a unbelievable talent and probably would have thrived under any team, any system. But I think that was kind of the perfect guys to be around for him in his career.
I was kind of grimacing there. The one question, the guy that asked the question about him jumping up over that question sort of, I guess, kind of, in my feeling, kind of started off shaky. I think.
What was the question?
I think there was a bad connection there, but about Troy leaping over the line of scrimmage against to tackle Kerry Collins near the goal line. The question alone started off, I think, on a rocky road because there was a bad connection, and I think the guy kind of had trouble kind of spitting it out. What he wanted to say, but in so many words, it was what he saw. It was how he became Superman basically on that play and timing it and all like that. And I just thought Troy's response was great there. Talking about how it was a cover 2 situation, obviously being backed up to the goal line. Not much room for a safety to move in that situation, and that. He just basically got lucky, I guess. Timed it just right and leaped over. You can't pull up any Troy Polamalu highlights, I don't think, with that play against the Titans. And he talked about how, look, it's on the 2-yard line. He's got a great memory when it came down to specifics on certain things, like down and distance and stuff like that on a couple of plays as well too. But talked about they were on the 2-yard line, and hey, if I mess this up, they only get a yard, and then that way. But that ended up being one of the better questions and answers, I think, of that interview. On top of it, to hear him kind of get inside his head of what he was thinking in such a highlight, play that survived the ages, I guess.
Yeah, Troy can call it luck, but man, he got lucky a lot then apparently. It wasn't luck. It was all skill and timing and just Troy being Troy, plays that only he could make.
Boy, the instincts that he had alone, and I bet I think Bill Cowher's been quoted in some stuff for saying, no, Troy, no, oh, good play, Troy, that kind of stuff there. But the guy just had incredible instincts, and I remember Peyton Manning giving interviews before and all saying, and Tom Brady as well too, saying, man, you just always had to know where 43 was on the field, and even sometimes when you did, you'd see him in one place and you snap the football and he's 15 yards down the field, after being at the line of scrimmage at the snap of the football. So you want to talk about you talk about disguising coverages and make a cover 1 look or make a cover 2 look like a cover 1 or something. Boy, they could do it, couldn't they?
Yeah, that was the thing. Every offense, every OC, every quarterback knew you had to find Troy, but you couldn't find him because you would never end up in a spot that you think he was possible, or you just never could identify him, even though you knew you had to. And that's the mark of a special player, when you knew defense or you knew offenses had to account for him, yet they still couldn't manage and accomplish that. And that's just what made Troy Troy. So, really excited for his Hall of Fame, official enshrinement, induction, and his speech.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah. Alan Faneca had some interesting comments too, especially about the year he played left tackle. I know that's like your favorite topic when it comes to Faneca, because you talk about how it snubbed him from the All-Pro vote and just kind of how crazy it was. And he played well at left tackle, and it was just such a unique season. And he talked about how it was the best year for his body because he didn't have to play guard and kind of always be right in the thick of the run game. Some of those backside runs where you just kind of have to seal the backside defender off, and it kind of saved his body a little bit. But I thought that was interesting for him to kind of talk about that season.
Yeah, I meant to watch that entire thing last night, but you know me, I get sidetracked very easily. But did he? I didn't hear that question and answer there. Did he? What? How was the question phrased, and how did he answer it? In other words, what was there any? you had to think he was like, man. I mean, I know the story. I wrote it up several years ago, thinking, man, this guy this guy got shorted an All-Pro because of his unselfishness of having to play left tackle for the number of games that he did that season there. I mean, I bet you, I'd bet my house that if he played his regular position that year, he would have been another first team All-Pro, and then that might have ended up getting him in the Hall of Fame quicker than what it did, right? So I'm just wondering, did he dive into just being disappointed at having to do that, or what?
No, he didn't really talk about that. I mean, I'll read you the quote here. The question was just basically, and I forget the specifics of it, but just, what was that year at left tackle? Like he says, quote, "My year out at left tackle was the easiest year I've had on my body. You're never on the backside of a play when you're a guard. But when you're the left tackle, you're on the backside of a run play. You really are on the backside, sealing a guy off, or you're chasing down a linebacker and sealing him off. I never felt pressure after that season of left tackle, so I always still give my left tackle buddies hell for stealing all that money out there. They're just out there cheating." But he did go on to say, because I think the follow-up was, did you want to stay at left tackle? Did that thought ever cross your mind? And he said, quote, "It never crossed my mind to stay out there. I wasn't having near as much fun as I was at guard." So he was still a guard at heart. Of course, kicked back to left guard the following season once Marpel Smith came back healthy and continued his All-Pro, string of All-Pro bids. But, so that was the comment there on Faneca.
I don't know. Maybe in the long run, that helped prolong his career a little bit. I don't know overall, but he definitely was shorted an All-Pro, I think, because of having to do that.
Yeah, and he would have, had he made the All-Pro team that year, it would have been 7 straight years of All-Pro, which I'm sure very few players have done. But unfortunately, that kind of broke up the streak he was on.
All right.
Faneca also believes Hines Ward will get into Canton, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer here, but I just have to disagree with that. I mean, hopefully it does. That'd be great. Obviously, they're pretty close. I mean, Ward's going to present him into the Hall of Fame, but I just don't think the odds there are very high. But he says, quote, "Yeah, he will get into Canton. It's just a matter of time, I feel," end quote.
Everybody listening probably doesn't want us touching that subject, do they?
Probably true, but just passing that along. And then Bill Cowher spoke as well. I mean, he's done more media tours, especially with his book coming out, so there probably wasn't as much new information there. He did joke that he wants to call blitz with him and Dick LeBeau in the Hall of Fame game. I'm all for it. Mike Tomlin let him do that. But anything from Cowher that kind of stuck out to you?
Oh boy, he's had so many interviews. I think just over the years, nothing hugely. I mean, really stuck out. I mean, obviously we've written about quite those things, but I don't think that anything that needs to be discussed in depth in this show.
Yeah, he does think that Ben's going to have a good season, and kind of thinks that he and the team is going to approach it with a chip on their shoulders, kind of being the underdogs for the first time in quite some time. Yeah,
I have not seen the Donnie Shell interview yet, just bits and pieces of it. I wish we could get a copy of that here and by the weekend and all like that. Maybe we will. I'm trying to effort that and all, but you talk about Faneca and promoting Hines Ward. You had Donnie Shell promoting L.C. Greenwood. I just think over time the Steelers, players that go into the Hall of Fame do a great job of trying to promote the next guy. That kind of thing, and you could probably go team by team when it comes to that kind of stuff and all like that. But and why wouldn't Faneca choose to help kind of promote Hines Ward, right? He played, right. I think he's said in the past that he's had a good relationship with Ward when they were together on the Steelers and those kind of things. And obviously Faneca had the help of like Jerome Bettis, pushing for him all those years and that kind of stuff on top of it there. So I just think overall, I mean, what it's what you would expect. I think whether or not Hines Ward eventually gets in, I mean, we'll see, but it's always good to kind of see them kind of promoting the next guy.
Yeah, just really good teammates, good advocates for each other, and hopefully Ward gets in. I'm not saying Faneca's wrong for feeling that way. It's just a difficult path for all the reasons we've kind of laid out in the past.
Right.
So good to hear from those guys, though, because you don't get to hear from Faneca and Troy, and for a long time, Cowher, didn't get to hear about him from a Steelers standpoint. You heard him on TV with NFL analysts, stuff like that. But good to hear from those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a rocking place, and when Canton rolls around here in a few weeks.
All right, Dave, I think it's a good time to get to our interview with Ike Taylor. Again, spend about a half hour talking with him about his Steelers career and his thoughts on the team today. So let's take a quick pause here and come back with our interview with Ike Taylor. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And as promised, we have a very special guest on the show today. That man is longtime Steelers Super Bowl winning cornerback Ike Taylor. Ike, how you doing? Thanks for being with us.
What's up, baby? How y'all doing?
Doing great. Really glad you could be here. Actually, you were out in Dave Bryan's territory, I think, last week there for a cigar convention. Now you have a new line of cigars, one of a kind, all pro series, the Howard G cigar line. How was your time in Vegas? How was that convention?
Man, it was a good time. Shook a lot of hands, met a lot of people that I needed to meet. Met a few people from Pittsburgh who didn't know I had a cigar line, so I got to come up next week and seal the deal. But man, I had a great time. And we talked about as in the people who smoke cigars, regardless on what color you are, regardless on your occupation, whether you're a CEO or a janitor or just an everyday person, man, cigars bring us together. And I never thought about that till old head told me that. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, man, we spent like 4 days out there with the Howard G cigar line and wind up just meeting good people, man. I had a great time.
Very cool. Dave, next time Mike's out that way, take him to breakfast or something.
Yeah, we'll have to go get coffee. What got you into the cigar? You've been a long time cigar fan, Ike. What got you into that?
Yeah, Dave, I've probably been smoking cigars for about 12, 13 years. And I kind of started smoking cigars because, I don't know if everybody know, man, the Chief. So Mr. Dan Rooney dad, the Chief used to smoke cigars. And I used to ask him, like, why the Chief smoked cigars? And was like, man, he used to calm him down. It just was a hobby. But little did I know that, man, smoking cigars is like a soothing thing. It's calm, cool, collective. And the more you meet people who smoke cigars, man, y'all got something in common, which is that cigar stick. So I kind of just wanted to try it. And I stayed right around the corner from a cigar shop. So, man, I said, you know what, man, let me pop my head up in this cigar shop. And all the guys were elderly guys, way older than me. And they still elderly. Like, I'm one of the youngest to go in the cigar lounge. But, it's a lot of wealthy, a lot of guys who has a lot of wisdom. So I said, man, I always told myself I always wanted to hang around people who was either doing better than me or have more than me. And I needed to know why. So, man, that's just what's been going on. So I just got in depth into cigars about 5-6 years ago because my palate, changed. It's like drinking wine. Smoking cigars is like drinking wine, man. So it depends on red wine, at least for me, because I like red wine. So my palate had got stronger with the red wine, and my palate was getting stronger with cigars. So I started off, with a flavored cigar to a mild cigar to a medium to a bold cigar. So I'm right in between medium and bold right now. But yeah, man, just looking at the Chief, Dave, just looking at the Chief in the pictures, not really knowing anything about cigars, but just kind of taking it from there.
I just want to kind of take it back because I don't know if I've heard you've been asked this question before about what your draft process was like. A smaller school corner. What were your expectations on draft day? Were you promised by teams where you were going to go, first round, second round kind of thing? And what was that just draft process like for you?
No, they hit it on the head. They said no later than fourth round. I thought they was lying because I only played that position for 1 year. Right. So when they said the fourth round, I'm like, man, I'm just cool with just getting in the dough. And getting in the dough for me was free agent. I'm like, man, if somebody just picked me up, I could take it from there. But Pittsburgh knocked on the door, and we all know the story. 12 years later, 2 Super Bowls later, what happened with the city of Pittsburgh. So, man, I'm just very grateful. I'm very thankful that I didn't get drafted by any other team but Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. I want to get you just on the record because I've heard different times. I've heard 4.18, I heard 4.22, 4.19. What is the fastest 40 officially that you've run?
Unofficially, it was 4.27. Okay. Officially, I think it was like a 4.31.
Okay, gotcha. And was that at were you at the combine or were you a combine invite?
I wasn't invited to the combine, but we had all 32 teams at my pro day because Charles Peanut Punch Tillman was highly ranked when it came down to coming out of college and getting into the draft.
Gotcha. Whenever you said how lucky you were to be drafted by the Steelers, what were your initial impressions whenever you first arrived to Pittsburgh?
man, I was in awe. You know, and when I got in awe was when I got to Pittsburgh, I just saw all the Lombardi trophies in the tradition. You know what I'm saying? Then I saw a guy named Troy Polamalu play at USC. But when I actually met him and we became roommates, I'm like, dang, man, I'm with this dude I used to watch in college. Like, even though I'm playing college ball, I used to watch him in college. And this dude get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
Ike, you this offseason, earlier in the offseason, you were very vocal on the Steelers' decision to bring back Ben Roethlisberger for the 2021 season.
Mm-hmm.
As the offseason has progressed and obviously on through the draft, I think a lot of those comments that you made initially were I think around draft time, if not a little bit before the draft time and all. Has your opinion changed any in the last few months when it comes to the decision of the Steelers to bring Roethlisberger back for at least one more season?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I probably my decision changed is because, you know, he's the starting quarterback. So you just got to rock with 7. And I have nothing against Ben. Look,
sure.
I love Ben. I just start from an organizational standpoint, and I was looking at, you know, the other 3 teams in that division. You know, that they're young. 3 of them made it to 2 of them made it to the playoffs. When you want to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and Baker Mayfield, you got a young stud and Joe Burrow. So I was just looking at it from that aspect, as in, you know, if Ben's still the quarterback, who would be his successor, and how long will it take for another quarterback, maybe in a couple of years, to catch up to the Baker Mayfields, the Lamar Jacksons, and the Joe Burrows. That's how I was looking at it. It had nothing to do with me not liking Ben. Like I love Ben. He's a Hall of Famer for me. He didn't want me to Super Bowl in Tampa, so I get that part. But from a GM perspective, that's how I was looking at that situation.
Yeah, and I know you've always kind of worn that kind of scout / GM / player hat, even going back to your playing days and all as well too. Look, speaking of Roethlisberger, we've it's been a big story the last, I don't know, it started about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and really I brought this up, I think, originally back in September after Ben's first game back against the Giants, and it really caught the kind of the social media buzz that, you know, a week and a half ago, and that's about Ben's foot tendencies pre-snap, right before the snap, especially shotgun specifically, that when right before the ball snap, if his left heel is off the ground, you know, and we went through all the charting last year, roughly around 90% of the time, it's going to be a pass anytime his heel is up at the snap of the football. Now, if he has kind of that flat-footed stance in the shotgun right before the snap, now we're only talking just a few seconds before the snap of the football. And if he's flat-footed, roughly around 90% of the times, it's a run there. Is that something that defensive players can pick up on, the foot placement of the quarterback that close, say a heel on or off the ground, just, 2 to 3 seconds before the football snapped? Is that concerning when you look at a possible tell when it comes to Roethlisberger?
As Buffalo, it kind of started with the Buffalo Bills, so they picked up on that tendency. So when when you have a good coordinator, a good head coach, and they look for tendencies, and it's time, and it's the last 4 games of the football season, man, tendencies are everything, and you try to find any and everything. So it's just like me playing a receiver, and when his wide receiver gloves are unstrapped, I know he's not getting the ball because it's going to be a run. When his gloves are strapped, okay, it's a high percentage that he's about to get the ball. And them are the tendencies you pick up to try to stay ahead of the game. You know what I'm saying? Right. Whether his left foot up or his right foot up, and the same way with 7. But for me, it wasn't that. With 7, it was the running game. I felt like Pittsburgh was just passing the ball too much, and they were saying, "Oh man, look at the offensive line." I'm like, the offensive line is pretty damn good at the time. They still should run the ball. And when you do have a depleted offensive line or a young offensive line, the best thing you can do for offensive linemen is run the ball, and because they get in the groove, So that's how I just looked at things like, man, we just need to get back to the old Pittsburgh Steelers way. That's how it was winning championships. Yeah, you won 11-0, but at the same time, man, when it came down to playoff football, if you just look at the teams if you look at the teams and regardless on the regular season stats and regardless on these receivers, man, playoff team, all they do is run the football. Cleveland came into town and what they did the recipe which we was known for, and that's running the football. And if you can just look at Tom Brady, and we know what Tom Brady has done when he was with Tampa, when it came down to the playoffs, man, we all thought Leonard Fournette was kind of going out the door. Now his name is, Playoff Lenny.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When you look at Patrick Mahomes, and when they did win the Super Bowl, man, they ran the ball. Their game plan was to run the ball. When you look at San Fran, when San Fran was hot at the time a couple of years ago, what they had a running game. That's just what it is in the playoffs, man. You can do whatever you want to do. It's a reason why you don't have fantasy football games in the playoffs, because it's boring. Because defense is locked down, and here come the running game. We're gonna burn the clock. It's gonna be mano a mano. We need our quarterback to make a play whenever we need our quarterback to make a play. And I just thought Pittsburgh had got away from that for a couple of years.
Yeah, no, I agree totally with you, Ike. I just want to go back to your career because I think some people forget, because you had such a long and great career with the Steelers, that you weren't a starter right away. You were a backup rotational guy your first couple seasons. How tough was that mentally to kind of bide your time and wait? Because so many guys, they were stars in high school, stars in college, they're starters, and now you come to the NFL, it's a different story. How tough was that for you to make that transition and kind of be a backup for a little bit?
It wasn't tough at all. I just understood. I had to win Coach LeBeau.
Mm-hmm.
Coach LeBeau. I only played for 1 year. We drafted Ricardo Coakley. Then we had Brian McFadden. And you want to talk about two athletic guys who, coming out of high school, they had nothing but honors. Going into college, they shut down their college career. They were shut down their college career. So I had to win Coach LeBeau over at the time, because my first season was Tim Lewis. And I had some spare time with Coach Tim Lewis, but then after that, I had to win Dickie over, because Dickie wanted he wanted them corners who were seasoned corners and smart corners who understood the game. So Dickie really didn't know what he was getting himself into with me. Mm-hmm. But man, my third year, I came in a training camp and my hair was on fire, and that was my third year. I was seasoned. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I understood defense, and I didn't look back one time. But that's you know what? I'm good because I had to go through the process. But Deshae Townsend helped me so much. If it wasn't Deshae, sitting down, chopping it up, letting me understand how this defense go, understanding how to be a professional, I don't know where I would be. But Deshae from day one, from the time I landed in Pittsburgh, Deshae Townsend took me under his wing, told me what I needed to do, and I wound up playing for 12 years.
Yeah, Deshae was such an underrated corner for the Steelers, such a smart, just a classic Steelers corner. Was there a moment in that third year where you knew you had won over Dick LeBeau? Was there a play that you made, or just some comment he made to you? You're like, okay, I got you.
Training camp, I was with the first group, and it was goal line and training camp. And goal line and training camp, you get 4 tries on like the 2 and 3 yard line. And Bussy, they did a sweep. My way. I was playing left corner at the time. Jerome Bitters, they did a toss sweep my way because the wide receiver cracked on a safety. The tight end had cracked on defensive end. The guard had pulled, and it was 1-on-1 with me and Bussy. And I gave him everything I had. And I needed help. I think Bussy wound up scoring, but that's when I won Dick LeBeau and my teammates over, because they was like, oh, this dude is coming up like a madman. and when the linebackers when I got up, which I was kind of dizzy, but when the linebackers was slapping my helmet, when the safeties was slapping my helmet, when guys from the sideline was slapping my helmet, even though Bussy did score, that's what they was looking for. And that's what Dickey was looking for. He was looking for a corner who understood how to tackle in his defense, because he knew in a lot of situations, them were going to be the kind of plays that was ran on us, because a lot of corners don't like tackling. Right. So, man, in open space at that, Dickey was always big on, I need corners who can tackle in open space, because y'all going to be left out on the island a lot in his defense, you know? So once that happened, even though Bussy did score, man, I won the defensive guys and the offensive guys over, and I didn't look back.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you couldn't tackle or couldn't play the run, you couldn't play for Coach LeBeau. Those were requirements. Correct. For sure. You played in a couple of Super Bowls, a couple more than I did. Just take me through what that week is like for you, and how much different was your first Super Bowl versus your second one? Was it a lot calmer to go through it the second time around?
My first Super Bowl, man, I kind of forgot it was in the Super Bowl. You know, the camaraderie. We did it for Jerome Bettis.
Yeah.
And and that was the goal. Do it for Bussy. Like, we knew we was going back to Detroit. We knew Bussy was from Detroit. We knew he was at the tail end of his career, so we wanted to send him out with a bang, you know. And the crazy thing about it was, during that week for the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl in Detroit was, man, they threw the ball at least 150 times in practice at me, because they knew the game plan for the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, why wouldn't you? You got a first year corner ever starting. Who we thought the weak link would have been on that defense, and if you want to look at it, it was me. You know, at least that's what they thought. So, man, they threw the ball so much to me in practice. By the time the game came, man, it was exactly what I think. The first couple of plays was to my side. You know, I think out of 10 plays, like 6 of them might have came my way. They just wanted to check the temperature. So, man, it was all love for me. But the veteran guys, man, they had my back. They called me Young Pup. They loved me regardless on what happened, regardless on whether I had a slow or fast start. They was just behind me 100%. And they told me, in order for us to win this game on defense, like, we need you. Like, we got some players, but we need you. And I took that to heart. The second Super Bowl, it was just like, man, we didn't play so long together, 4 or 5 years together. We could just look at each other, not say nothing, understand the defense and understand what the offense was trying to do to the defense, and just ball out. So that second Super Bowl, man, that's when we was breaking records. You know, that's when we would stop. And I think a lot of people say the Chicago '85 Bears, you know, had a good. But, man, I promise you, if y'all check this out for that 2008-2009 season, man, we were setting records on that defense.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the adjusted. I like to follow the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, and boy, it was super low that year. I mean, it's just all time, especially needless to say, against the run was good, but against the pass really good. You know, Alex was just talking about you and being a one of the premier tackling corners in the league. I think back, and man, I think the phrase "sticking the face in the fan" was invented because of because of you there. Listen, speaking about the game itself, I mean, it seems like yesterday you retired, but it's actually been, I think, since after 2014, right around in there. I'm 53 years old. I was fortunate enough to see your every snap that you played in the NFL. How is, in your opinion now? I mean, it's hard to believe it's been so long now since you have retired. How has the game changed? How do you view the game as being changed since you've been retired now?
I think it's a physicality part. I think, on the perimeter is these athletes are superior, like way superior. It's when I mean, like, athletically, man, you got guys who can just do a lot in space. Right now is for offense in the NFL is let me get the ball to my best athlete hands, and they finding ways to do it. The physicality part, because they're finding a lot, you get game checks taken away from you, you get suspended for a couple of games. For us, when we played, man, it was kill the head, the body will follow. that was the motto. That was the motto for us, and the motto on the secondary for us, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was when you talk to a linebacker or a free safety, was hold them up. So hold the guy up, wait for the cavalry to come, and we're going to try to clean him up so he don't play again. And that's just what it was. But now I think they're just protecting more, of your head. So it's getting back to the form tackling, where guys got to tackle with their shoulders. And I love what the NFL is doing now, protecting the brain, because at the same time, man, if you just look at it, I got a son and 3 nephews who all probably wind up making it to the NFL, no joke. If you look at it, I'd rather for their shoulder to be messed up than their brain to be wobbled with, So I think the NFL has done a good job in changing that. But yeah, man, that was our motto, man. Kill the head and body of follow when it came back. When it came down to how we played, that's just what it was. And then when they changed it from the target area, we were trying to blow out ACLs, and guys would be like, man, you know what? I'd rather y'all hit me in the head than tear up my ACL. Right. So it was like honestly, it's a lose-lose situation, really for everybody. But now I think they didn't clean it up. The NFL cleaned it up so good now. So they really taking guys and they starting programs from when they're young. Now it's a lot of more guys involved. The NFL involved in youth programs on teaching guys how to tackle. So, but that's the biggest change I see. But now these offensive coordinators, man, it's more. It used to be vertical. It's more parallel now when it come down to football, in my mind.
Now that you've been out of the game a little while, how do you watch games now, Ike? In other words, do you watch games differently than you did maybe when you played? What's the first thing you look for when the offense breaks the huddle? How does Ike Taylor watch games now?
Tendencies. So you just look at tendencies on offense and defense. You know what I'm saying? And you just look at really the first quarter, who's controlling the line of scrimmage. And that's going to tell me right then and there who's going to win the ball game. As an offense coordinator, you control the line of scrimmage. Man, you can go from play action pass or just running the ball and pretty much doing whatever you want to do. On the defensive side, if you control the line of scrimmage, you already know it's going to be hell for the offense. So that's what I look at in that first quarter. Who's controlling the line of scrimmage? And that's going to dictate play calling on both sides.
Ike, you mentioned at the top, your relationship with Dan Rooney, and of course the Chief kind of inspired the cigar line you have. I know you were super close with Dan Rooney. What is your first memory of him, and how did your friendship grow over time?
Soft-spoken, old school with the briefcase with the 6 numbers on his briefcase that looked like it was like 40 years old. That Yinzer, downtown. We say downtown. Right. Down here, Papa Rooney was saying downtown. Like just that heavy Pittsburgh accent. That was my first memory of Papa Rooney.
Right. And so what was the story you told? He let you sleep on his couch one night or something in his office or something?
Yeah, I was super tired. I was burning candles on both ends of the stick at the time. Yeah. I was young, and I always used to come in and chop it up with Papa Rooney before I left the building. And I chopped it up with him one time, and little did I know I fell asleep when I was talking to him. And when I woke up like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, his door was closed, and it's that panic wake up, like you late to work kind of wake up. Mm-hmm. So that's how I woke up. Mm-hmm. But he told his son to get out of his office. He wound up going to his son, Mr. Art Rooney office, and that was in awe for everybody. Like, okay, Mr. Rooney really does think this guy is special. But that was just him. His door was always open. Anybody can talk to him. So him and our relationship, man, it was just, I really can't put a finger on it. Mm-hmm. We just had a bond like no other. And people heard about our relationship, but when Papa Rooney passed and people saw me, sitting with the family at the funeral in the front row, and I'm looking back, and I'm looking at all the Hall of Fame greats. I'm looking at all the owners from the NFL. I'm looking at President Obama. I'm looking at these political leaders sitting in the back of me. And when I went to the viewing, and it was just me, and then you Google these pictures, and Ike Taylor plus his 6 grandsons, that's when everybody like, okay, we heard about their relationship, but now we genuinely see these two had something special.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about one piece of Steelers news that is in the news today, and I personally chalk it up to just being in the offseason, but a lot of opinions about Devin Bush's tweets the last couple of weeks. He's had some Twitter controversy. Are you have any level of concern with that? Do you think it could be a distraction, or do you think it's just off-season fodder?
Nah, Devin don't mean no more. That's just Devin.
Yeah.
Like if Devin was playing with us back in the day, we would love it because we would tell him keep talking smack. We're gonna back you up.
Okay.
That's what we would tell. That's what we would tell Devin because he's an old school. He's a Steeler.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Steeler. There's a difference between being a football player and a Steeler. Devin Bush is a damn Steeler. So I like how he plays. I like his aggression. He's throwback to me. And at the time, if Twitter was popping and he was talking how he was talking, especially coming off his injury, we would say, man, keep talking. We back you up 100%.
Last question for me, and we'll have Alex get you out of here. Ike, Dwayne Haskins signed during the offseason, obviously former first-round draft pick. I know you're always the scout. I know you're always watching tape on these guys and all like that. What has been your impressions of Dwayne Haskins, really his first couple of seasons in the NFL, and what do you see his potential upside maybe being or not being?
The fact that Big Ben said that Dwayne Haskins can throw a football through a car wash and not get wet, that let me know how good Dwayne Haskins is. Because 7 don't say too much about his quarterback room. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he did, the light bulb just went all the way bright when he said that. I'm like, oh, snap. This dude must really be special. You know what I'm saying? Because 7 don't say too much, and we all know 7 don't say too much about guys in this room.
Right.
But the fact that he did, I said, okay, it's a reason why he went first round. He played at the Ohio State. Yeah, he was a first round draft pick for the Washington team. He probably was immature at the time. He needed some Coach Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers tradition around him. And if you talk to him and you listen to his interviews, that's exactly what he be saying. Like, man, I'm at a culture, won't have no other choice but to be better. So if I'm talking to a Kevin Cole and I'm like, man, y'all don't need to go and get a quarterback because y'all got a first round quarterback as a steal. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
But for me, what sparked my mind was when 7 had made that compliment about him. I said, okay, they got something special over there.
For sure. Ike, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. We know you have a show as well, right? The Believe in Steelers podcast. You and Mark Virgin. Tell us, how long you guys been doing that and where people can find you.
Find us on Instagram, Believe Podcast. Find us on my Instagram, Ike Taylor, aka One of a Kind. Find us on Twitter, Ike_swaggy. Matter of fact, I'm posting something tomorrow. We do it once a week. And we talk Steelers football. That's exactly what we talk about.
Gotcha. Love it so much. Thank you, Ike. Appreciate it. Hopefully
Thank you, Ike.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you, fellas. Y'all too.
And again, our special thanks to Ike Taylor. Really good guest, great interview, and I love some of the stories. I love this story about him taking on Jerome Bettis in training camp, and that was kind of the moment whenever he won Dick LeBeau over, won his teammates over, and got the starting spot in his third season. So tremendous interview there. Thank you, Ike.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think about his take on the whole tell thing and Ben Roethlisberger? He barely hit on it, but you kind of get the feeling he thinks that's a little bit of an issue there.
Yeah, at first he started off by saying that it kind of was an issue. Then he seemed to maybe back off of that a little bit later on. To me, the issue with a tell is just because there are times where he is tipping it a couple seconds before the snap of the football. And that I can see as an issue. Whenever you can see that 2 to 3 seconds before, maybe it's not going to get communicated probably throughout the entire defense, but probably someone's going to pick up on that at some point. But whenever it's happening a fraction of a second, which is more often than not the case, then I don't think it's much of an issue. So again, I'm not saying the tell is a non-issue or a zero issue. I think any sort of tells and disguises, and I talked about that, is a problem for a team. The more information you give a defense, the worse you're going to be as an offense. So it's not something that can be ignored entirely. But is it this massive problem where it's this obvious tell and one of the worst kept secrets? I don't think so. And again, Ben's been doing this for probably his entire career, so this isn't a new thing impacting the offense either.
Just to kind of tag on that, I don't want to get too deep on it because we've obviously, you addressed it, and the whole team really addressed it overall in that post and all the research that we did from 2020. And I think you and I are in agreement that it is a tell. The stats say it's a tell, but when it happens in the pre-snap process, it's just so hard to play in and play out to kind of, I think, tee off on that kind of thing there. Overall, on a scale of 1 to 10 being a concern, I don't know. I'd put it, from what I know right now, I'd like to have a quarterback on to kind of talk about it. We're trying to effort that as well too. It hasn't come, come to fruition yet, but maybe it will in the next couple of weeks here. Have an former NFL quarterback on to get his take on that or not, based on the data and the film, that's out there. On a scale, I guess, 1 to 10 on the concern meter, I don't know, maybe a 1.5 or 2. I don't know. Where are you at?
Yeah, I would be it just depends. I guess I'm at a 3. It's all, I'm just making up a number here. Because there are times where I could see it being an issue, and I think in the run game it's probably more of a tell.
Oh, really, the run, as I stated, I think my biggest concern was runs because of kind of really the stance too.
Yeah, it's not even about the foot; it's about just his general posture, which is probably a bigger tell than the actual placement of his foot or what his foot's doing. So,
right.
Again, could it be cleaned up? Sure. What I would just tell Ben is just to try to hide that to the last possible second where he's lifting his foot, right before the snap, which is happening roughly maybe 3/4 of the time. But just make sure, you're not doing it, 2 to 3 seconds before the snap, which is still happening occasionally. And if you clean that up, then it's really not going to be very useful to defenses.
I couldn't help myself. I had to do a little bit more homework on that, and I pulled up Tom Brady's Week 1 game last season with the Buccaneers. Same stance. Flat-footed, same stance in the shotgun, run or pass.
Okay, so there's no tell there.
I didn't spend an hour on it, but I went through. I think I went. I did. I went through every. I went through every shotgun snap of Brady's Week 1 game last season, and okay. I came away thinking I can't tell.
You can't tell the tell, but right. It could be something else. Quarterbacks can have a million different tells just from their eyes, from their other body language. So maybe I'm not saying Brady has a tell, but it could be something else that defense is key in on.
Right. About Ike Taylor. Boy, what a story, right? This is a guy that I think initially was playing some running back at where was he? Louisiana Tech.
Lafayette.
Or was it?
Yeah, Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Lafayette, yeah, Raging
Okay. At Louisiana Lafayette, running back there, and then asked, as the story goes, wanted to be switched to cornerback during his senior year, and really, I think overall wasn't a huge standout guy. That last season there, but he was a height, weight, speed guy. You go back and talk about analytics and the Steelers and what's the sparkiness, that we always talk about. Ike was every bit of that, man. When you go back and review kind of the numbers that are out there related to his pro day, and as he mentioned during the interview, not a combine invite there. So he was very much a height, weight, speed guy, but yet still very, very raw on top of it. And boy, there, his right out of the chute, that was called, that was, I remember articles out there, what a horrible pick, what a waste of a pick this was. But he obviously, look, he was never all pro or anything like that, but he became a real integral part of that Steelers defense. And the thing we always throw out the phrase, put your face in the fan, find those cornerbacks that can stick their face in the fan. Ike was Ike and William Gay were kind of two of the originals of those elite least in the odd years, right? When it comes to Steelers and Steelers cornerbacks there. So he really did beat the odds. I mean, he two extensions, right, during his career.
Was it 2? Okay.
I think it was 2 contract extensions and I think one of them at the time was the highest for a cornerback with the Steelers. And obviously inflation probably played a hand in that and all. But the fact that he played as long as he did, kind of coming out of college really as a smaller school height, weight, speed guy, it's a testament to him overcoming that.
Yeah, I mean, any mid-round pick or any player in general to make it, 12 years in the NFL, I mean, the odds of that are so low, even for the guys who do make it to the league, to do that and have that kind of career. And he would have been all pro if he could catch. If he just could catch some of those interceptions, because he was a lockdown corner, cover corner, and could play the run, and was good in that regard. He just didn't have the interception numbers because the hands weren't very good, and but he picked one off in the Super Bowl. So I mean, he made the plays when they counted. He did drop one in that game too, but he picked one off later.
I figured he wouldn't want to talk about some of those drops, so I left that question out of my series.
Me too. You just mentioned something, and I just talked about my memory. You had you talked with Joel Corey last Friday about T.J. Watt's future extension. Joel Corey had an article for I think CBS Sports that talked about he could touch $30 million. We tweeted that out and got a lot of pushback from it about it's too much money. You can't pay T.J. Watt. Don't do that. The Steelers don't do that. And I know it's probably a vocal minority of people who don't want to pay T.J. Watt or are concerned about the money it would take to pay T.J. Watt. But I just can't wrap my head around anyone who's like in the anti-pay Watt camp.
And I think the majority of those people just don't keep up with it and what the hierarchy and the pay is. And some people saying, well, he's an outside linebacker. Those other guys are defensive ends. Look, an edge rusher now is an edge rusher, man.
T.J. Watt is defensive lineman for all intents and purposes.
Right. I mean, they're dropping them less than those outside linebackers less than they have in years, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a guy that predominantly is technically a defensive end, for lack of a better term. They just tag him an outside linebacker, but whatever you want to call him, he is an edge, and I think it's good to group those guys together in that, all together there. You should not penalize him for having to drop into coverage. How many times did he do it last season?
It was 9.8% ish, right around there.
All right. I mean, why? If anything. You ought to be deemed, a more important person because you have the skill set to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm,
But I mean, when you look at the guys, the Myles Garretts and the Bosas, and you look what those guys are earning. Look, I said this right out of the chute, and I mean, there is absolutely zero reason to think that T.J. Watt won't be the next highest paid edge rusher, and right now that would be right at $28 million. And I thought Joel Corey did a great job of saying, look, and I was one of the few out there right out of the chute that said this might be $30 million. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to end up I said right out of the chute, I think anywhere between, especially after Bosa got his deal, 28 to 30 million there. And I thought Joel Corey did a great job of saying, here's why it might be closer to 30 million than the 27 million that Bosa got, and that's because of the way the Steelers do contracts. And look, because you're not giving me the full quote unquote guaranteed money that some of these other guys are getting, you're gonna have to come off a little bit of more average yearly, make that catch flow a little bit stronger at the front end of the deal to get me to do that. So I mean I take every opportunity I can to pat myself on the back. This is should go exactly the way I think it's going to go, and I just don't get. This is what edge rushers make right now, and people say, "Well, Steelers don't have a history of making guys reset in the market." Yeah, they do.
Right, they absolutely do.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
AB, Pouncey, Troy, I think. I mean, DeCastro was like the second highest paid guard. So, yeah, they absolutely do. And Watt will become the highest paid defensive player in football.
Right. I mean, there is, unless something happens knock on wood, in the next several weeks, there's something unforeseen, unfortunate. There is no, it's going to be, I think, at least $28 million. And I thought Joe Corey did a great job too. Of we were talking about what's a signing bonus, what's that cash flow. I know nobody probably cares about that but me, but I think it's an important part of the process of being able to structure this, to figuring out how they're going to structure this deal with him, because the cash flow has to be so heavy and better than even, I think, Bosa's, through the first 3 years of this thing. I think Joel said the first three new years of the deal, something around the lines of $100 million, along those lines. And I think specifically the most important part of this piece is what is the signing, what is the guaranteed money that first year, what is Watt going to put in his pocket in 2021? And I think it's very, very possible. I had thrown around 40 to 42, $43 million signing bonus right around in there, or in total maybe a first year take of 2021 of around $43 million. I kind of listening back to what Joe Corey said, that number might be $46 million, Alex, because if you gave him a $45 million signing bonus and then a $1.089 million base salary, the Steelers don't generally, I don't think, guarantee that base salary. Normally, it's just going to be the signing bonus. Now, could they do it differently? Could they make it a roster bonus that's basically fully guaranteed, and then the signing bonus, which is guaranteed, and get to that $45 million that way? Yeah, they certainly could. But I just think on paper, what makes the most sense right now is giving him, at most, I think it would be at most a $45 million signing bonus and a $1.089 million base salary in 2021. That would give his first year take, which would be a stronger cash flow than Bosa got. That would total out at $46.089 million for 2021. And the funny thing about that is if you do the math and you carry the one and you take your shoes off, you get a cap number of in 2021 of 10.089. What is his cap number right now?
It's right about the same, isn't it?
It's 10.089. So
it's right on.
So that's a way that you can get him done, provide the cash flow, provide the guarantee, make him a $28 to $30 million average new money average player, and his cap number, what it's scheduled to be right now, not even move. So I will be shocked if his first year take once again is not at least $43 million. I will be shocked if his where am I going here? If it's not, I'll be shocked if it's not. I think it's going to probably be a 5-year extension on this, and his new money average of being at least $28 million. I think the Steelers get off cheap if his new money average is just $28 million. I think it's probably going to be closer to 30. In other words, this entire deal, once it's packaged up, including his old money and new money, will be anywhere between $150 to $160 million.
Wow. Yeah. And obviously, it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it is the going rate. Like, how could you justify, and how could TJ Watt and his agent, more importantly, justify him getting paid the same or less than what Joey Bosa's making at 27.5? A year removed from that contract, and Watt being, to me, the second best defensive player in football behind only Aaron Donald. You couldn't justify it. So you're at least at 28 and probably higher from there.
Let me turn the ceiling fan on here because you got me all worked up here talking about contracts and stuff.
And this deal will look good like 3 years from now because everyone's going to be making $30 million by then when the cap goes up, tenfold and things like that. So it's a lot of money for sure. But in a couple of years, it'll be standard fare.
Yeah, I know there's probably a subset of people out there saying, well, don't pay him this year, just wait and franchise tag him next year. If you're TJ Watt, are you going to be happy about playing for $10.089 million? I know a lot of people are rolling their eyes. Says $10.89 million. That's a lot of money. He should be thankful. Blah blah blah. He signed his contract. That's a 5th-year option. The Steelers have the right to do that. I would be highly upset if I'm him. If I am forced into a situation where I have to play for $10.089 million after all I've done in my first 3 years here, right? 4 years here. I would be upset big time. And You get, and obviously you get in next year that, what's the franchise tag then going to be? And the meter's running, and you just get it done now. That's the been the likeliest outcome, the path. You look at historically what the Steelers do with guys that they want to keep in that they give the 5th-year options to. All signs point to this.
Yeah, draft, develop, and retain. That's the philosophy of the Steelers. Don't let your great talent get away. And more often than not, they've been able to keep their guys. You're going to keep T.J. Watt. And plus, obviously we don't know what the future is going to be, what the quarterback situation is, but, you're unlikely to have a big money quarterback contract on the books next season. So you can give T.J. Watt money and not be super cap strapped in all likelihood. So, again, it's worth it. It's going to happen. I'm very confident about that.
We're just waiting on the numbers now. Now,
Yep.
Look, it probably won't happen until the closer to the start of the season, and there'll be a lot of talk, I'm sure. Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? But I don't be surprised if this goes on up until, the week before the regular season starts,
Yeah. Right. That's generally kind of how the Steelers have operated. So yeah, just saw that, and your comment about Ike Taylor being, his contracts kind of jogged my memory about that conversation I had the other day. Dave,
is Ike Taylor a Hall of Honor kind of guy? Probably not, right? Or is he?
I wouldn't say no right off the bat. I'd have to think about it some. Certainly if he was inducted there, I wouldn't have any problem with that. He was a really good corner, obviously never going to make the Hall of Fame, never be in conversation for it, but he's someone that was a really strong Steelers corner, helped him win a couple of Super Bowls. So sure, he's probably not, a slam dunk, first name that comes to mind kind of guy, but I think he's worthy of it.
And I'm not talking this year, next year, 2 years from now. Is that somebody that 10, 15 years from now gets looked back on, and say, boy, what an integral part of that defense, played this many years, in other words, as the names, the now deserving names, to be in the Hall of Honor get worked through.
Right.
Are we going to get to a time where you consider that?
Yeah, as the field kind of opens up,
Right.
and all the obvious names get in, and you kind of get those guys out of the way. Yeah, to answer your question, yes, I think that's possible.
Other than a guy like Ben, who should get in, should obviously get in, deserves to be in, and people had the discussions about Hines Ward. I think the next push needs to be obviously L.C. Greenwood.
Yeah, and there's been a pretty strong push. I know, as you mentioned, Donnie Shell was pushing for that, and hopefully the fact that the PFR has those unofficial sack numbers can at least provide some context to the career that Greenwood had. Actually had more sacks than Joe Green, according to PFR's numbers. I think 78 for Greenwood, 77.5 for Joe Green. So I would love to see that, and I don't know if it's going to happen. He's on senior committee, I guess it would be now, right?
Oh yeah, it had to be a senior one now. It had to be like a Donnie Shell situation.
Right. So I think it'll be a tough path, but worthy of it, absolutely.
I think we could. I honestly think we could see that happen within the next 5 years.
I hope you're right. I'm probably a little less optimistic about it, just because that's such a narrow path to make it. But I hope so. All right, Dave, with training camp, again, right around the corner, I want to start some of our training camp previews, kind of go through things position by position as we do every offseason, the kind of, things we're looking for, things fans should be looking for in terms of just what they should, anticipate happening this training camp and this preseason. We'll start things off with the quarterback position. Obviously, you got 4 of them on the roster: Ben, Mason Rudolph, Josh Dobbs, Dwayne Haskins. Ben's your starter. Rudolph, I think, is very comfortably going to be your backup, your number 2. And then you'll have Dobbs and Haskins battle things out from there. So what's your overall take and expectations for this quarterback room?
Is this the portion where I can rail on Ben Roethlisberger? Where I can my weekly hate on Ben Roethlisberger? Haven't we been getting a lot of that lately? That we've been railing too much on Ben Roethlisberger, or
I still get the occasional comment that we act like Ben was never a good passer, especially with a deep ball, and we try to be very specific about it's been poor the last couple of seasons. And objectively, he has been poor with the deep ball for the last several years.
Now, poor completion rate. All right, now are all those Ben's fault? Absolutely not. But just as a percentage and statistical wise, he can still throw it deep. He's still the same kind of Ben that likes certain situations where cover one, where you get the man guy on the outside there. None of that from what I've been looking at over the last several weeks has changed my mind on that. And to me, it's not a knock. He just needs, whether it be the receiver's fault, whether it be the route concept fault, whether it be Roethlisberger's accuracy fault, however you want to frame it. The deep ball needs to be a couple percent better on passes 20 yards or longer. Does he maybe need to throw? Do we need to see him have the fourth most attempts of 20 yards or more down the field in 2021? I don't think so. But just my overall takeaway on Roethlisberger in recent years here. And yeah, you can go back in 2010, but this isn't 2010, folks. 2010 was 11 years ago. All right. 2014 was 7 years ago. A lot. There is no Mike Wallace. There is no Martavis Bryant. Those a lot of things have changed. And like it or not, Ben's gotten older, man. It's okay to kind of knock on some of these things if you provide the proper context with that. And that's been kind of my whole point throughout this whole deep ball thing. No, we're not. Look, I said it right out of the chute. I thought the right decision was to have Ben back. I think it gives him the only legitimate chance to maybe do something in 2021. I think it was the right decision to bring him back. On the flip side here, and I guess as we're going to kind of get into the quarter, I just had to get that out there because we get so many. I got a nasty one I can't even read on the podcast, saying how unappreciative we are, you and I are Ben, and don't respect his career, and Alex just agrees with Dave on his analysis with Roethlisberger so he doesn't get fired. Yeah, just crazy stuff like that. And that's not where we are on him. It's okay to pick out where a quarterback needs to be better at, I think. And I think we've been fairly consistent on Ben and the whole deep ball thing for a couple of seasons now, have we not?
Yeah, I think, again, as you said, if we really were like anti-Ben, neither of us would have advocated for him coming back. And there were certainly a camp of people, and still are, people who think that this team should have moved on after the season. So, obviously, Ben's been a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot, and he can still. I'm still optimistic about his ability to play well this season. So many in the national media are down on him and say he's done, and see the Tannenbaum comments and stuff like that. I think he can have a strong season with Pittsburgh this year. The deep ball though is just not a strength of his.
All right, now let's look at, in the context of, you said positional breakdown, and starting with the quarterback room, it obviously starts with Ben Roethlisberger. I have got to be, and my terrible take yesterday, and people say, oh, who cares what Adam Schein thinks, but I wanted to examine a certain way that Adam Schein framed his hot take the other day on Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, he's not buying the notion that Ben Roethlisberger will have a huge season, or he either said huge season or huge year. I apologize for not having in front of me there, but it means the same thing, obviously. But what isn't quantified there is what in the hell, Alex, is a huge season, huge year for Ben Roethlisberger. Let's start there.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly he was referring to and how he wanted to quantify that. I just took it as he wasn't going to have a good season. He wasn't going to play well, and the team was not going to be successful. That was kind of my interpretation of it.
But good, and I think of two different things when someone says Roethlisberger won't have a good season versus Roethlisberger won't have a huge season. I get two different connotations in my head, don't you?
It can be if you would talk about just pure stats versus actual play. I don't know the direction, he was taking that, but I just based off his other comments, because he's been very anti-Ben. It's just he doesn't think Ben's going to have a good season, point blank period, however you want to, quantify that.
Here's my thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger in 2021. I think it should be less about Ben Roth. I think if you're building a punch list of things to be concerned about in 2021, and I said this in so many words on my terrible take, I think it's got to start with the running game, okay? I think going into the season and piece that together, listeners, however you want. Is that all on the offensive line? Is it combination offensive line and Najee Harris? Is it play calling? I don't care how you want to piece together the loose connotation of running game needs to be better. It needs to be better, and it needs to be 50% success rate or better. All right. I think that's when you're building a list of concerns for the Steelers in 2021. In my opinion, it starts there. Second on my list is the defense has to play. I'm not expecting to play close to the way they played in 2020, but I think it needs to be good enough. And my good enough means having an adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat 5.7 or better, and doing a considerable decent job against the run. That's concern number 2 for me. Number 3 on the list then would be, in my opinion, to play a Ben Roethlisberger. Because I think if you don't have number 1 or number 2, then I don't think it matters how Roethlisberger plays, to be quite honest with you, because I don't think he's going to be able to play the way you probably need him to play week in, week out to overcome not having number 1 and number 2 done. I think if you get number 1 done, which is establish a running game, I think you're going to see a better Ben Roethlisberger than you saw in 2020. I think you're going to see a little bit better average depth of completion in that area, something that we banged on consistently. I think you have a chance of seeing his deep ball completion percentage going up a little bit. I think you obviously at that point limit the times that he'll have to throw for 32, 35 or more times a game. That's obviously a plus there. So I think when people always say, well, this is what Ben Roethlisberger will be, you won't have a huge year. I guess long story short, what I'm getting at here is I don't think Ben Roethlisberger needs to have a quote unquote huge year season overall, for the Steelers to be successful. I really think it's one of those things that's down the list there. Look, he is a good enough quarterback that if you give him a running game and a good defense, he should be able to get the job done here in 2021. Now, if we get midway through the season and you have a success rate of 50%, a run success rate of 50% or higher, you have a defense that's got a 5.7 or less adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, but yet you have a Roethlisberger that hasn't been good down the field, who's turning the football over. Well, that's when your finger pointing can start.
Yeah,
right there.
I suspect that most people, in the way that guys like Adam Sheen look at this, is they say, Ben, he's not very mobile, he's regressing, he's older, behind a very questionable offensive line, a brand new offensive line. That's not going to go well. I think that's kind of the way, and I'm speculating here a little bit when I say that, I suppose, but that's where I think a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that Ben's not going to play well this season.
Have you gone back? I mean, did you see the stat the other day that I posted about out-of-pocket throws? I mean, when have they asked him to do a lot of out-of-pocket pass attempts in the last 3 or 4 years?
They haven't.
Stop it. Stop it already. Stop Matt Canada. Might Ben have a couple more rollouts maybe this year?
I think he will.
Right. I think he will. But are we talking 10? 10 more than normal? I think what's kind of been the average. What, about 20? I don't know, 26, 27 out-of-pocket throws. Now, how many of those were him being forced from the pocket? How many of those were designed? Yada, yada. It obviously needs some context, but I think overall as an average, you're probably under 30, okay? Now, let's say it's like, 27. You divide that by how many games a season there. Might we see maybe, Ben out of pocket throws around 35 or 36 in 2021? It's possible. But just stop it with Matt Canada's going, all of a sudden he's going to be this rollout quarterback, right?
And I think the rollouts they do have, I've been actually watching some Maryland tape. I'm going to do an article probably for next week on a real in-depth dive into a Matt Canada offense. What we can expect is that like there are a lot of half rolls, half boots, and stuff like that.
Right.
So there'll be rollouts, but they're not going to be like really long bootleg scramble type plays. It'll be just a quick half roll and probably hit the tight end or the back in the flat.
Something that's timed, right?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, it's not going to be not like a traditional college heavy mobile quarterback rollout option scrambling offense.
Now, I'm not saying that Ben Roethlisberger just has to be a game manager, or the hope is that all it turns down to is it rolls down. Because look, once again, you agree. You said offensive line concerns. Look, if they have to pass protect 30 to 40 times a game on a consistent basis, this is not going to go well. Probably. Well,
it just means that you're throwing that much, 50 plus times like they were last year, because that means you have no run game, or it means you're behind in games and stuff that's just generally not conducive to team success.
True or false? The upside of what portion of the offensive line in 2021 has the most upside? The run blocking portion of it, or the pass protection part of it?
I'll say the run blocking aspect of it, because A, they can't be worse than last year. B, with Clem's kind of foundational, physicality mentality, I think will help, for obvious reasons. I think probably just a better unit, better equipped to run block right now. I think I have more concerns about them in pass pro than I do in the run game.
Agreed. And I think they have a potential to look. I mean, what have we heard? What have we heard since the Rooney signal went up? We've got to run the football better. They retooled, obviously, the offensive line, physicality, attack, bully, draft Najee Harris in the first round, bell cow running back, got to get the running game going. I mean, the further away you get away from the Rooney signal, the more people forget what the Rooney signal was. Make no mistake about it. This team wants to be able to run the football and run the football successfully. It all starts there. Good run blocking will make the running game better, which will make the pass blocking maybe a little bit better, which will make the passing game a little bit better. It all stems, I think, from there. So no, I don't think Ben just has to be a game manager only, because a game manager only won't be able to. You kind of shudder in key game situations, right, where you got to drive the field at the end of the game for a field goal or a touchdown. Ben's obviously more than that. I think can still get that portion of that portion of the game gone. But I don't. Once again, boiling it back down to expectations with Ben Roethlisberger. I think it's okay if kind of statistically we come out of this season with statistically Ben being the number 3 or number 4 quarterback on however you want to measure that there. They can still win and potentially make the playoffs with Ben being statistically, or however you want to decide it, the third best quarterback in the AFC North. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, obviously there's going to be an emphasis on the run game and improving that for all obvious and important reasons. But, end of the day, Ben's still driving this team and this offense. He's still going to be the guy for this group. And if this team's going to go anywhere, it's going to be because Ben's playing well, because the line's protecting, things like that. So obviously you want a more balanced offense, more efficient offense. You want to improve that run game, absolutely. But, Ben's still the guy end of the day.
Right, of course he is. I mean, I'm not just saying that you can throw anybody out there, but where is he on your concern list? I just built mine for you. I put offensive line or running game specifically, number 1. Number 2 of mine would be defense, just really pass defense overall. And then number 3 is how Roethlisberger plays behind that. Would you disagree or re-rank or have a different set of top 3 maybe concerns? I think all this talk about Ben's got to be this, Ben's got to be that, I just think it's totally overblown, because I think if you don't have that running game 50% success rate or better, I don't think none of the rest of it matters, to be quite honest with you.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, for me, my number one concern is the offensive line, just because there is so much new there, and that can apply to still the run game, but also the pass protection aspect of it as well. Because as they go, the rest of the group's going to go. If they can't do their job, Ben can't do his job. If they can't do their job, Najee Harris probably won't do his job very effectively overall, and it's going to put your offense in so many bad spots. And so it all comes down to the O-line. That's going to reverberate throughout the rest of this offense and this group. So that's number one concern. Number two, probably some of those young guys in the secondary. How are they going to step up? James Pierre, Antoine Brooks, embracing and taking charge of some of those sub-package type of roles. And then number three probably goes back to an extension of the O-line, but just the run game in general and how much better that group's going to be.
You see where I've gone overall with this, though, right? Mm-hmm. Where I'm trying to, I'm playing down that Ben Roethlisberger has to be this, that, and the other. I think all the talk about fat skin. I don't care if he's 289 pounds or 189 pounds. To be quite honest with you, I don't think it matters what he weighs if you don't get the running game going. Right, and really right out to shoot as well too, because I do, if you want to take this as well, Dave thinks that Ben Roethlisberger can't carry this team offensively. If you want to frame it that way, okay, I'm fine with that. Look, you look at the years that the Steelers have really been successful, into the playoffs and deeper playoff runs. They've generally more times than not have had a running game with Roethlisberger, correct?
Yeah, correct. Obviously, the first Super Bowl, the 08 wasn't a great run game. Obviously, the line wasn't that great, but
they had a great defense, and I made sure to clarify that they had like a 45% run success rate. I think 46 in 2008, and Roethlisberger wasn't great statistically and all, but man, if you got a good defense, that's the outlier there. Having arguably one of the best defenses in the last, I don't know, one of the top 3 or 4 defenses in the last 20 years, right?
Yeah, that's what Ike was talking about, how good that group was. They weren't just good, they were elite. They were the best defense in football. And obviously they made some big plays in the Super Bowl to get them over the top. And
you look at Ben's, people hate that I get on this adjusted net yards passing attempt stat, but until someone can quantify it, tell me how it's a bad stat to use and make a good argument about it, I'm going to continue to use it. You look at his career number, it's under 7, man. Okay? That's not a knock on him. Okay? Overall, to some degree, I guess it is. But, only a couple of times only twice during his career has he had a number over 7.5. And if you look back, top 10 quarterbacks just over the last 5 years, what I talked about yesterday, the average of the number 5 quarterback annually in the last 5 years when it comes to the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number is something like 7.7. All right. Well, Ben's only topped that once during his career. So if you want to quantify and say Ben needs a huge year, aren't you thinking top 5 quarterback in the league?
Probably, but again, I don't know exactly how. I don't think Sheen was thinking those advanced analytics.
I know. I understand he wasn't. And that's why I'm trying to demean him for not.
Right. No, I understand what you're doing. Yeah.
But. I guess, trying to close this out on the discussion on Roethlisberger, I don't think Ben has to be exceptional, great quarterback in 2021 for the team to be successful as a whole. I think it's down the list, and I do think, though, if you don't have a running game and you don't have a good pass defense, I don't care what Ben does on the field, period. I don't think it's going to matter come playoff time.
But if he's not going to be the great guy, then those other parts have to step up. They have.
Sure, and I think that will be a byproduct of 1 and 2 being where they should be.
Okay, fair. Now to the here and now for this summer, putting the stats aside and all that, what are you looking for, if anything, from Ben just over the next 6 weeks?
Stay healthy.
Okay. Is there anything else besides just get to week 1 healthy? I want to see him in this Canada offense. I just want to see what the level of comfort is. Obviously, I want to see how Canada's offense kind of has his little college style and flair to it, and how that works well with Ben, how much under center it's going to be, and just Ben's overall, does he just feel and look comfortable running this offense?
I think one of the biggest things is does all the motion look less clunky? Does Ben seem to be distracted like Tinsel? When me and Tinsel, I don't. It's not a concern with me, Alex. I think he over the years, really overall, I think he's done a good job of kind of, look, this is a guy that used to be backyard Ben, right? And Todd Haley comes along. You can't make a dink and dunk passer out of Ben Roethlisberger and get the ball. I think more than anything, he's going to have to start trusting in certain situations to be able to hold on to the football, maybe a tad bit longer. But I don't think we're going to see 2.8 second snap to throw times with Ben on average. I think you could see that number come up, obviously, at 2.5 or around in those kind of things. I think just maybe seeing him, hopefully, with some of these route concepts, having to show maybe just a tad more bit patience while they develop and trust in that. But look, this receiving crew, one of the pluses here with Roethlisberger this year is that he should have the same guys back that he had last year in the story period. And that includes gimmicky Ray McLeod, however you want to use him. I think you're going to see a high number of kind of check downs to Najee Harris. My biggest concern, and none of this is preseason or training camp related, because I don't think we're going to learn a whole lot of that overall, is just that 10 to 15 yard area, right? I think we got to see Ben attack that more, and not only attack that more, complete passes in that area. But once again, I think that's going to be a byproduct of good quantifying the good things that happen because you have a running game category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
I really am downplaying the quarterback. I gotta be honest with you, I'm downplaying and maybe I'll get halfway through the season and say, man, I was wrong that way. But I think my concerns about Ben probably aren't the concerns as high concerns about Ben as maybe what you are. Things that I want him to just get through. All I care about in the next 6 weeks or whatever is Ben staying healthy. To be quite honest with you, that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously number one, and if you do that, then you're going to be mostly okay. But it's a new OC, and could there be some early growing pains, maybe a little bit. I think we'll see some more horizontal crossers that might substitute the actual pure deep ball down the sideline. I think it's probably more to Ben's strength and to some extent more to this offensive strength.
Claypool did that quite. I wouldn't say a lot, but there was a lot of short digs by Claypool on his tape.
Yeah, or I think even deeper, the Y over, the slot cross, stuff like that, 10, 15 yards downfield, that's more on a rope, but still getting more vertical. I think we'll see, a healthy mix of really short passes, of jet plays, of those little jet touch passes, of stuff in the flat and things like that, with a combination of some more of those horizontal crossers is kind of how I think this Cannon offense is going to go. So it'll be interesting with the snap to throw times, because there's going to be probably a lot of throws that'll skew that number of just real quick one-step release kind of plays, but hopefully you get that more healthy mix of throwing the ball downfield, probably with more horizontal crosses, but we'll have to see. I just want to see how it looks with Ben. Does it feel different? Does it feel uncomfortable? And just what does it look like? And just how Ben, because it is a relatively new system. I mean, Canada's 1 year guy. It's not the in-house guy like Fietner and Wisenhunt and Arians and guys like that. So I just want to see how it looks on the field.
I guess the other aspect would be things you're looking for, and I don't know how much maybe they'll showcase it more than maybe we think. You've talked about pistols since the end of last season. There, we all talk I guess we've officially reached. Will Ben use play action part of the portion of the offseason now? Mm-hmm. The annual. I think and Ben under center. I think those will be interesting aspects to see if maybe they tip that. A little bit, during training camp and all like that. That's something that we've talked about quite a bit as well too. So I guess those would be kind of things that I would be looking for when it comes to Ben in the quarterback position.
Yeah, me too. So enough about Ben. I think we covered that pretty well. Let's talk about the rest of the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph projected to be your number 2. I just want to see his pocket presence. I just want to see him move within the pocket better. I think there's maybe been some small improvements there, but still, to me, his biggest issue, even in that Week 17 game last year against the Browns, which was, I think, to date the best game of his career, still had some of those pocket presence and movement issues. And he's not obviously a super mobile guy outside the pocket, so he's got to be really strong within the pocket and footwork and things that Mike Sullivan's preached and has worked with those guys. I want to see, are we seeing steps forward there for Mason Rudolph? Because the preseason and camp should be really slowed down for him. I mean, he's played in the NFL enough, played in stadiums on Sundays enough that this should be a cakewalk for him.
I still have more optimism about Mason Rudolph than most do, to be honest with you. Obviously, I don't want to see him have to play a lot, in 2021. But I think in certain situations, if he has to come in for a certain set of plays, and once again, if the running game's doing what it's supposed to do, and I think he can be a game manager to some degree there and do okay, as long as a couple of those other things that we talked about with Ben, running game and deep. I think a couple of those things are in line. Once again, if you have to get in a situation where he's starting 8 or 9 games, all bets are obviously off at that point there. But I think he's a capable backup quarterback.
Well, I think he is too. I just worry the team's going to think he's more than that he's someone that can be, full-time starter for them. I think as a backup, 1, 2 to maybe 3 games, throughout the season. I mean, you can live with that. You can work with that. But anything beyond that, probably isn't going to be his role, but we'll see. I mean, this will be another year for him, and I'm not going to totally typecast him of what he is and isn't quite yet. But in terms of things to look for this season, just that pocket mobility, I think, will be top of my list.
I mean, I've never understood all the talk about Dobbs or Haskins pushing him for the gig. I don't see where anybody has any substance to push that. I think in order for Mason Rudolph to not be the backup to Ben Roethlisberger at the start of the season, A, he would have to get injured. B, the other choice is, I mean, he would absolutely just have to have a miserable camp and or preseason. I mean, I guess you could go back a couple years ago with Landry Jones. It's not so much that Landry Jones lost the job, right? It was probably more of the fact that Dobbs made a couple of plays late in the preseason, right?
And didn't Jones have an injury in camp that year? I want to say. I'm not 100% sure. He got injured in camp one year. I don't know if that was the year or not. And so just, other guys got more reps to show what they could do. Not that Jones, lost it because he got hurt, but the other guy just had more of an opportunity. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it would take a lot for Rudolph to not be the backup this season.
All right, the number 3 spot. Is it unthinkable that Dobbs beats out Haskins?
No, I don't. I know we focus so much on Haskins and is he the future and all that kind of stuff, but it's like this guy's got to make the roster first. I mean, it's very much a battle to me. And Dave, when it comes down to who's going to win that job, Haskins versus Dobbs, it could go either way. To me, it's going to come down to the quarterback who's more accurate, especially on that short intermediate type passes, those rack throws that Matt Canada's talked about, run after catch opportunities for the receiver. Neither guy's been particularly accurate. Josh Dobbs in camp has posted some of the worst completion percentages across the board year in, year out. I know that's just one number, but you watch him and you look at the numbers, they match up. The accuracy has always kind of been an issue for him. Short, medium type crossers, and I think that'll be a pretty common route combination called in this Canada offense stuff across the field. So whoever is going to be more accurate to me is going to win that job.
I think if we both were putting our money down right now today, it would still be on Haskins getting that position. But, I think you got to all the off-field stuff. I think I tell you, my level of certainty, whatever it was that Haskins would be the number 3, did take a hit this past week.
Did it? It didn't for me. I didn't really feel any different about it. I mean, I think that Haskins is still probably the slight favorite, just the pedigree, the potential that he may have. I think Dobbs is pretty maxed out probably at this point in his career. But the Steelers, to their credit, are always very merit-based in terms of those kind of jobs. And so if Dobbs legitimately does better, he's going to win the job. And they'll cut Haskins and maybe put him on the practice squad or, carry a fourth quarterback that way. But whoever is the better guy, I think, will truly make the team.
Once again, if I'm laying my money down right now, I'm saying Haskins is going to be the number 3. But I don't think it's totally out of the question to to think that, he might not be.
Is there anything else you're looking for specifically, traits-wise from either of those guys this summer that'll kind of tell you and clue you who you think should be the favorite or will win the job?
I really, even though Mike Tomlin probably wouldn't frame it this way, I think it's Haskins to lose. All right, and I know he's not kind of the incumbent, if you will, but I got to see the accuracy things. I got to be able to visibly see him do a better job, I think, of understanding what he sees across from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's accuracy and reading zone defenses have been, I think, his two biggest issues in the NFL.
I mean, look, we said right out of the bat that we didn't use the term specifically that he could throw a football through a car wash without getting wet. But one of the things that sticks out on tape is the arm. But there's a lot of quarterbacks that have come and gone that have had throw through the car wash. My Southern, you can take the boy out of the trailer park, but you can't take the trailer park out of the boy, can you?
Yinzer say they can't say wash, right? They get a little wash in there too.
A lot of quarterbacks have come and gone that can throw the football through the car wash without it getting wet there. I just want to see him make some plays, man. And in preseason, because of the personnel that you're playing with, it's not ideal. Just want to see him make plays and not make a lot of mistakes. Plain and simple.
But even with lesser personnel, quarterback talent can be obvious. Even if another guy's making a mistake or something like that, if you're that talented and Haskins has talent, then you can just kind of tell that this guy's a cut above the rest. Even if other guys are struggling or the rookies or whatever the case is. But Haskins, I'm not saying he won't, but he better be ready to work because Dobbs is going to put in the work. He's going to put in the time. He's going to be great. In terms of knowing what to do. He's been in the system, been with the team, and just a really smart guy overall. So I'm a good foil to push Haskins, making sure he's not, getting too comfortable with his job, and just Haskins, and hopefully he will. Again, I'm not saying that he won't, but he better be ready to come in and work every single day.
You know what I do with him? Right out, shoot a Hall of Fame game.
What's that?
I don't tell him he's starting. I don't even let him get a hint that he might start the Hall of Fame game. I let him go through the process, and then I tell him the night before the game, you're starting the Hall of Fame game.
Okay. And the reason is just to
I want to see how it goes. I want to see the preparation process. I want to see all of it.
Okay.
I think that's an ultimate throw the baby into the 7-foot part of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad did me. Literally. Look, why not? This guy's had enough pressure on him by now, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy that had the weight of a whole Washington franchise on him, right?
Sure. In Ohio State, a lot of pressure coming off the bench and leading the team there.
Right. So, let's find out how serious you're taking this stuff, man.
Right. Yeah. So
I mean, do you really? And I don't think it's. I wouldn't. If I'm Mason Rudolph, I'm not taking it as demeaning. I'm taking it as, well, they're comfortable enough where I'm at, even if I have to come in and play the second half of the Hall of Fame game, whatever. Be quite honest with you, I don't even play. I damn sure don't play Ben Roethlisberger in the Hall of Fame game. I'm not so sure that you have to play Mason Rudolph in the Hall of Fame game. If I want to see a lot of Dwayne Haskins in that game, and then and how it goes if he struggles in that game. Then I a quicker hook with him, put Dobbs in. If he doesn't struggle, I let him kind of go with it, and then maybe let Dobbs play the fourth quarter in that. That's personally, someone tell me where I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I don't think you have to play Rudolph in the Hall of Fame game. I mean, it's kind of your bonus game. I mean, you get these 2 or 3 others like the rest of the NFL. What I would potentially do is just give Haskins the first half. Even if he struggled, even if he bombed out there, I would just keep him out there just to let him try to play through it, because you got to deal with adversity. You got to deal with kind of sucking sometimes, not just getting benched and getting pulled and getting the hang of your head and just trying to work through it. So I'd probably do Haskins the first half and Dobbs the second half of the Hall of Fame game.
And it's okay to come out of that. It's okay, in my opinion, to view that as a no-win situation for Haskins, because quite honestly, if he goes out there in the Hall of Fame game as a former first-round quarterback who's taken quite a few snaps, who's got a rocket of an arm and all like that, if he comes out and he dominates or plays extremely well against whatever the Cowboys put on the other side, people say, well, he was supposed to do that. All right. On the flip side, if he comes out and he bombs, well, people say, well, you set him up for failure there. I'm okay. However, anybody wants to frame it as a win-win situation. I think that's the right thing to do, and I am going to be advocating for that from here in the next 3 weeks, Alex. 3 weeks from yesterday. Wow. Can't wait to get into that tape and all. But all right. Anything else? Once again, I still, even though Haskins is new, I think it's his number 3 spot technically to lose. I know the Steelers won't treat it that way, but that's where.
But it could go either way. At that point, Haskins could easily lose this job, right?
I think he can. Absolutely.
Right. So, who you want to call the favorite right now, slightly technically, it doesn't really matter because that this thing could go either direction.
Sure. And once again, we're talking about a number 3 quarterback position. If it gets that far deep into the season, then we're talking about other things on top of it.
Well, yeah, but now you have an eye towards the future as well. With that number 3, he's probably going to be something more than maybe your number 3 next year. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it as being more important than other years, because we're talking about not only a test run for winning a job this year, but maybe having a significant role next year as well.
If Roethlisberger gets hurt or tanks or whatever, they're not going to bench Roethlisberger. Get that out of your head, Mike Tannenbaum. Even late in the season, what's that quote that Leonardo DiCaprio uses in that Wolves of Wall Street, or what? It's gonna take to get me out of here. I'm not leaving.
Right.
I can envision that. You're not going to get Roethlisberger off that field. I don't care how bad it gets. He's not coming off the field there. Now, if Roethlisberger was to get injured, then obviously you probably want to see as much out of Mason Rudolph that you can, moving forward, and I would suspect that would the way they go. Now, if you got into the later part of the season, you're not liking what you're seeing out of Mason Rudolph, then that's when you're into Dwayne Haskins territory. So once again, if we get at any point of this season where we're seeing Dwayne Haskins or Josh Dobbs taking snaps, well, we're talking about a lot of different things on top of that, I think.
Yeah, it's 2019 all over. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but yeah, we'll be watching for it. It's a good quarterback room overall. I'm really excited for this group. It's a lot of youth, a lot of talent there for sure. A lot of different styles, new offense, new OC. I'm really excited to see how this group unfolds, because there is a lot of uncertainty there, but some excitement as well.
I think overall, I am less concerned about the quarterback room. It's down the chart as far as my concerns going into the season. And I don't know when the last time those words may have been uttered. I think you need a good quarterback, obviously, to win in the NFL, or at least to make a run at a Lombardi. I think it's a Captain Obvious type situation. I think Roethlisberger can still do what's needed to be done, but it's got to come behind several other things there. So that's why overall, when I look at the quarterback room, I'm fine with it, man. I just think that other things have to happen in order for that quarterback room to be successful in 2021.
I agree. I know this episode is running long, but I want to get to the running back position today so we can get through some of these position previews before training camp starts. So let's talk about the running backs here briefly, because we've talked about them quite a bit, starting with Najee Harris. How much do you think Harris is going to play this preseason? Is it going to be
it's got to be some. It's obviously got to be some. You got to put him in certain situations to read certain things, get him lathered up a couple of times. You can't live in your fears, I don't think, with him, man. I think with this offensive line being rebuilt and the whole timing and him being a rookie, I can't quantify just yet what that amount is, but yeah, I think he needs to play, and I think he needs to play in the Hall of Fame game, maybe a series or two, and then maybe ramp it up a little bit more from there. And if you've seen enough in by the last preseason game, then get him 2 handoffs and get him out of the game, that kind of thing. But I think to some degree, you have to get him out there playing some snaps.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that he does, and they will do that. And it is hard to put a number on it, and you're probably not married to one particular number. But I will just say, to kind of play devil's advocate, is that it's going to be a long season for Najee Harris. 17 games. He's going to be the workhorse. He's going to be touching the ball at least 300 times, probably a lot more than that. And so you want to be very mindful of that snap count, because you're counting on him to be the guy. And if he gets hurt or he wears down or hits that rookie wall or something like that, you're kind of depending on your offense, as you talking about, improving that run game that'll help Ben and help this offense. So I think you have to be more mindful than usual with a guy like Najee Harris.
I agree.
So that's
I'm excited. I mean, look, I'm obviously not a big advocate of taking running backs in the first round, but I think as we said all along, if you're going to draft one, it better be one that can stay on the field all the time. Blah blah blah. And then later in the first round, as opposed to obviously earlier in the first round. I get it. I understand why they did it. I mean, but now you bought the horse. I mean, you better put a saddle on it, man.
Yeah. For sure. And I'm just excited to see him this summer in the passing game. What kind of weapon he can be, maybe in the screen game, just flexed out in the slot, stuff like that. I think it'll be interesting to see. So obviously we'll see how he looks as a runner, but as a receiver, because he's a very talented receiver. I think I want to see how they use him specifically. So the backups, more uncertainty there in terms of who's going to be the guy. Anthony McFarland, Benny Snell, Kalen Ballage. McFarland in year 2, obviously a difficult rookie season. I think you can give him a pass for a lot of reasons, for him being a redshirt sophomore coming out, for him, the COVID stuff. Preseason, etc. But he needs to show a real big jump this year and probably just be playing faster overall, having better vision, hitting the hole quicker, things like that. So I think it'll be a really important summer for Anthony McFarland.
I'm interested as the season progresses with him to be able to go back and match up some freshman Maryland tape when Canada was there and try to pick out things that we've seen before. Because I think that was You got to use them on some of those wheels. You got to use them on some of those pre-snap motions with him that Canada used freshman year with him as well too. Interested to just see overall, other than just straight handoffs out of pistol or shotgun, or under center type thing.
Well, so to me, I want to see him as a true runner, because that's what he was still drafted to be. And that's what he did the majority of his time in college.
I want to see that, but I want to see some of those other things though too that were creative that Canada used with him too.
Yeah, I think maybe him being used as that jet player occasionally, like McLeod, as well, could be useful, be interesting. But just want to see him develop as an actual, just pure runner. Some inside zone stuff to the boundary. They ran a lot at Maryland. Now the hashes are a little bit tighter. The boundary field doesn't matter as much in the NFL as it does college. But just want to see his vision and ability to read the play and hit the hole and use that speed that he has. Because if he's going to win the NFL, I mean, he's going to have to win with speed. He's not a Drew Archer type of guy, but his calling card is his open speed, open space, and open field ability, and yeah, I want to see that on display.
All right, gonna be interesting to watch what happens with Benny Snell and Kalen Ballage, I guess. Look, neither of us think Jalen Samuels is going to survive this, right? Barring injury.
I don't think so. I don't want to completely forget about him, like I did a moment ago when I rattled through the names of backups there. Could there be an increased value in a Canada offense or some of that short pass game? I suppose, but I need to see Samuels do something after the catch. I want to see him catch the ball cleaner. He's got drop issues, and I just want to see
last year, I think.
Yeah, and not a lot of opportunities too. The percentage was really high. So, can he create after the catch? I mean, he'll be a versatile, flexible option, and that might, do well in this Canada offense. It's going to want guys who can be versatile, but I just need to see some big plays from him.
I something's gone wrong if he makes the roster, I think. I am discounting him. So if he makes it, feel free to throw all this back in my face. Okay.
And then with Snell, I'm just trying to. I feel like it's only a third.
Benny Snell football, man. Benny Snell football. I cannot see that Mike Tomlin's fallen that far out of love with him. I guess this goes to the whole Dobbs Haskins. Is it fathomable that maybe Ballage gets a spot instead of Snell? I suppose. But man, I'm having, and look, I know Benny Snell's not been, obviously fantastic at all, been really kind of a mediocre kind of guy, but he does give you the special teams ability. He can break the occasional run. I think he's okay in pass protection there. I just think where he is versus where Kalen Ballage is, from where I sit right now, Alex, I will be pretty surprised if Benny Snell, even though I will agree it's fathomable. I will be surprised if Benny Snell does not make this 53-man roster.
I'm just trying to think, what am I looking for from Benny Snell this offseason? What does he need to show that he hasn't shown that he's capable of showing? Because obviously he's not going to be a game breaker or bust off 70-yard runs. That'd be unreasonable to expect. But like, what is the next step in his game? And I feel like I'm not certain of that answer because I think he's kind of close to being maxed out.
That's fair. I mean, he was kind of a low ceiling guy anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you could just see, more short yardage stuff, the power, yards after contact, things like that. And obviously, if you really do a deep dive into this film, there's stuff that you can look at vision and reading the play and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's pretty close to that ceiling.
And I mean, Ballage is under EM though, right?
Yeah,
other than the short yardage stuff,
similar guys. I mean,
they are
similar guys. I mean, they've carved out, I think, really good niches on special teams, running on punts, short yardage guys. Blanche has been very successful there, more so than Snell. So we'll see what that is. I mean, there's similar body styles overall. Blanche a little bit taller, maybe a little bit thinner, but they're similar guys cut from the same cloth. So and they could keep both. You could have 4 running backs of Harris, McFarland, Snell, and Ballage, and plus Derek Watt. That
feels like overkill to me though this year now.
Well, they kept.
I know. I'd say this year,
and they're only probably going to keep 5 receivers, right? Because who's going to be your 6th receiver unless somebody in a McCoy, Bussy emerges, someone like that. So I mean, you're not going to keep more than 3 tight ends, right?
Right.
So if you kind of do this roster construction, your strength is probably keeping 4 running backs.
All right.
So I don't know. Well, I mean, we'll see.
It feels like overkill right now, but we'll see.
Yeah. But it's a good group. And then, are we missing any running backs? They didn't bring in. There's no undrafted guy or anything like that. So it's kind of a veteran group of running backs, I suppose.
Right.
Plus Najee Harris, of course. So and then Derek Watt. Just want to see him get through camp healthy. I mean, obviously last year wasn't a good year. Probably overpaid, his contract. But it is worth noting that the guy was hurt in camp and was just in and out of the lineup all year. So it was hard to get him into a rhythm of being part of this offense. And we'll see how a fullback plays in Matt Canada's offense.
All right. Shall we get to some emails?
Yep, let's do it. Let's get through some emails and close out today's show.
All right, Nate Holtz writes in, "Hey guys, long time listener, first time emailer. Congrats, Nate. Where you been? No, seriously, thank you for this. Love the show, especially when you guys start off talking about sacks and end up discussing Queen or the Eagles. You could probably thank me mostly for that. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that's one of the beauties of we do it all, don't we, Alex? I mean, you never know which way. It's like I'm in the insane asylum, and you're the ward that's got to try to keep me in the jacket sometimes there. But I think that's always kind of been the beauty of this show in general, and kind of the on air, I guess, kind of way Alex and I kind of bounce off each other, and sometimes you just never know which way it's going to go. He says, it's always fun to hear if Alex gets your references from the 70s and 80s. Keep up the good work. My question for you all is this. Which season from Tomlin era was the most disappointing for you? Personally, I'm torn between 2017 season with the playoff loss to Jacksonville and the wheels falling off the bus in 2020. I think it's got to be that 2017 or the playoff loss to Jacksonville to me.
I mean, just the last decade has been disappointing.
Sure.
Right about that, right after the Browns lost. I mean, probably 2017, but just to me, what made 2020 disappointing was because you knew that was like the last best chance. That's how we framed the entire season, even before the year began. Like, if they're going to make a run, and they were capable of making a run last year, like that was going to be the group and the team and the year to do it, especially Brady finally out of the AFC, and you still had Mahomes, obviously, but at least Brady was gone. And then to be one and done, to lose in upset fashion to the Browns, I don't know. To me, that felt, maybe just because it was more recent, but it felt more disappointing because it felt like that was your chance, and that's how it ended. It's super disappointing.
All right, buddy Jelani Suleiman writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, hope all is well. I'm in agreement with you guys in saying the Steelers may very well take a step back in terms of record due to the roster turnover and their schedule. While I do think the Steelers have holes, I also think teams in division like Baltimore have issues at defensive line as well as their offensive line and wide receivers. Bengals, I feel, are still young, and the O-line and defense still have a lot to be desired. And while the Browns are considered the favorites, I feel the Steelers gifted them the wild card and still don't think the Browns are all that. And now that they have the expectations, everyone is going to know that. So my question is, how many wins do you think it will take to win the division? Thanks as always. Look, I still stand by it and will, barring something significant happen, I think this division is going to beat the living snot out of each other. and I use snot to be polite. I don't think any team will come out of this with less than 2 division losses. I think they all have, obviously, the AFC North plays a tough schedule here. I think at best, 10 wins. I think the team at best that wins the division will have 10 wins, period, end of story. I think there is some scenarios where 9 and 8 I think could potentially get you in the dance.
Yeah, I'm still the other direction. I think 10 wins is the minimum to win it in a 17-game season. I think 10, 11, maybe even 12 will do it. I mean, I don't know the last time a division winner in the AFC North won with only 9 games. You're right, it's a tough schedule, tough division, but there's also some really good teams in the AFC North. Like, they're going to hold their own, they're going to win games. So I think probably 10 and 7 is the minimum bar to take the AFC North ground, even if it is a tiebreaker where 2 teams are 10 and 7.
Who are you most likely to give the you said more than 10 wins, right?
I think I said 10's the minimum, so 10 and up.
Okay, who is most likely to hit the 10 or greater number?
I think you can make a case for any of those teams. Like I said, it's going to be super competitive. I mean, if you ask me who the favorite is, essentially what your question, I think, is, I'll go Cleveland. That's blasphemous to say, but I think they are a legit team, and they had a really good offseason, and they finally have some stability with that group.
I think so, too. And from where I sit right now, and get some hate mail for this. If the Steelers win 10 or more games, go ahead and get Mike Tomlin's bust ready, I think. I mean, well,
you get something in the playoffs. You got to get us.
Yeah, true. But I just struggle seeing them get to 10 wins right now.
Yeah, I have them as an 8 to 9 win team, which obviously to me is not going to be enough to win the AFC North.
Yeah, we're a bunch of haters. Chuck Griffith, Dave, is Najee Harris the most NFL ready running back talent, skill, conditioning since Adrian Peterson, or am I looking through my black and gold Yinzer glasses? We got to see more. We got to see something out of Najee Harris before we start calling him, comparing him to Adrian Peterson in any sense of any kind of comparisons. I'm not saying that he can't be that, but he is. Yes, he is NFL ready. Yes, he has talent. Yes, he has the skill. Yes, he has conditioning. But are there other backs that have come into the league with good talent, skill, and conditioning?
Sure. Saquon Barkley just a couple years ago. He was like the 3rd overall pick. That was like the generational talent at running back. So I think we're forgetting about some of those names, but I think Harris is extremely NFL ready, and like day one, like he's going to be good to go. And that's why they took him. If he wasn't NFL ready, then they weren't going to take him at 24.
Everything that we've seen so far points to this guy being a bell cow, being the back that the Steelers hope he can be. So I don't know how to frame it other than that. Right,
and we'll get our answer though pretty quick because he's going to be tested week 1 against Buffalo.
Rodney Schuschman, I got your email here, but it's long, so let's table that to next week. There, let me see. I thought I saw one more in here. Chris Lookhart, I would like to say bravo to Dwayne Haskins. He got his tooth knocked out and didn't knock out his wife. We all know what happened. We all know what happens in hotels with football players when their wives or girlfriends hit them. Cough, cough, Ray Rice. Maybe this is proof he is turning the corner. Yeah, I don't know what to do with that email there. It's just an unfortunate situation all the way around, really. Period. That's the way I look at it. I'm glad nothing else really has come across. To suggest anything other than what's out there happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad he didn't. Again, we don't know all the details. I'm glad he didn't retaliate, but I think it's a low bar to like applaud a guy for not beating his wife, even if she punched him. So like, I'm not going to celebrate that too much.
Yeah, I don't know where I read it. Let's move on. Buddy Danielle Russell. Good day, Dave and Alex. This is Dan from Brisbane, our buddy over in Australia. Hope you enjoyed your holiday, Alex. Thanks for holding down the fort with the great podcast, Dave. They really keep me going on my long drives for work. The discussion about jerseys made me wonder if either of you are fans of other sports. I know, Dave, you mentioned boxing, and Alex seems to talk about the Pirates a bit. Thanks for all you do. He says if you haven't heard of Brisbane, you probably will soon, as it's looking like we will host the 2023 Olympics. Look, my second favorite sport is hockey, man. It overtook baseball years ago. I love hockey, and really, if I'm ever to go to I'm more apt to go to a hockey game in person than I am any other sport. Believe it or not.
How many hockey games have you been to?
Oh man,
excluding 2020, obviously.
I mean, I was a season ticket holder for the Ice Pilots and Ice Flyers, but nice. That was back ECHL days, and they're still in the SPHL and all like that. And I obviously, as the site got busier, I give tickets away and all like that. But I would try to go to more than a couple and all like that. But hockey is by clear my second favorite sport, and really, to be honest, MMA might be my third now. The old UCF and all like that. Now I really love watching those big cards, those big cards, and buying those fights.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had a sport you liked that wasn't one of the major sports, but I guess MMA. So you kind of got into it more recently, or have you always kind of been a fan?
I mean, it's grown over time. I liked it right out of shoot, but not to the level that I like it now. So
when did it start? How? I mean, and that's probably a very.
I can't answer that.
When did you start following it? I guess I should ask it.
Man, I guess five years ago or so. I guess. I mean, let's see. I moved out to Vegas 5 years ago. Probably right around that time, 6 years. 6 years, right around in there. I don't really know for sure.
It's pretty popular, I guess, out there.
Oh man, it's huge. Oh man, you go right by the thoroughfare here, 215, and boy, the big old UCF buildings right there, man. So
you golf fan? You watch golf, right?
I watch. I love the majors. I love the Masters. I used to set because that usually comes right around my birthday, and there was nothing better than going out and drinking a few beers and mowing the grass and then settling in and watching the final rounds of the Masters. I obviously don't drink anymore, and I don't mow lawn anymore. On top of that, but I'll pay attention to the majors. Yes.
Okay. You play golf?
I did. I mean, I have chased the ball around quite a bit into the woods. Yes.
All right, gotcha.
I mean, I grew up in Northwest Florida. Joe Durant's from there, golfer. I had a buddy, kind of a semi-pro golfer that I grew up with, and all. Actually, several of them that I grew up with that were good young kind of amateurs in that area. Really, 3 of them in total. But I never played it. I had to work all the time, man.
Yeah.
So
any of those guys make it? Any of those amateurs ever make it like?
No. Well, Joe Durant obviously has been on the tour and all like that. So
I don't follow golf, so I don't recognize the name. I'm more of a casual sports fan, but I like all sports. Baseball is probably my second favorite one. Been out to the Pirates game, going to a Pirates game this weekend. So hockey, basketball. The Suns had should be a 3-1 lead. Now it's 2-2. Now it's a series. I'm scared, but not as diehard as football. But I like all sports.
All right, let's see. I'll get to this other one by Graham Craddock. Remember me to get to Graham Craddock's email. We got to get out of here. We've gone a little bit long here. All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Thanks. Shout out to Ike Taylor too. What's his Twitter handle again? Swaggin.
Let me pull it up here to make sure we have it exactly right. But yeah, big thanks to Ike Taylor for being on the show. Hopefully we have some more interviews in the future lined up. You can follow Ike Taylor on Twitter at Ike_swagginu.
All right, long show today. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. If you'd like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button for $25 for one calendar year. You can have ad-free version of the site until Tuesday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.